Good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Nayasha Joseph, and the C News is live at noon.
And I'm Nasira Mohammed with sports.
Topping the news at this time, the labor movements in Trinidad and Tobago are planning a major protest to raise their concerns and objections to government policies affecting workers. This came out of a meeting held last evening among the Joint Trade Union Movement, the National Trade Union Center, and the Federation of Independent Trade Unions and NGOs. It comes a week after the Dr. Keith Rowley-led administration opted to dissolve the Tourism Development Company, and days after the Ministry of Education said it's looking to take action against teachers of the St. Madeleine Secondary School for holding a protest.
Because we suffer the fate at the steel workers in a different way, and workers were not entitled to severance, because what they rule is if it's not a retrenchment and there's a dissolution of a company, well then a retrenchment doesn't exist and the question of severance doesn't arise, and that can be a real possibility with TDC.
Said by action by government in the recent past was a sign of war against the labor movement.
We have to put aside whatever differences and organize and send a clear message and go on the streets there and do what we have to do that is necessary to send a clear message that we ain't taking that.
2 workers attached to the Tourism Development Company have been sent home. According to the representing union, the workers got the termination letters on Wednesday afternoon, shortly after protesting outside the Parliament building. President of the Communication Workers Union, Joseph read from a letter given to one of the employees.
Contract of employment dated February 3, 2015 between yourself and the Tourism Development Company in the position of project coordinator. This is the important paragraph. Subsequent to the announcement made on March 9, 2017 on the dissolution of the TDC, the decision has been taken to not renew your contract of employment. In accordance with clause 10 of the said contract, you will be paid in lieu of 1 month's notice of non-renewal of contract.
Last week, government took the decision to dissolve the TDC and said workers will be given the opportunity to apply for positions when a new entity was created. The CWU said the Minister of Tourism has not met with the union on the matter. As such, the CWU will join the other unions for a planned march.
This government has declared war on workers, and they have declared war on the trade union movement, and we could only respond in one way. We will take whatever necessary action that we have to take to defend the rights of these workers, and as such we are in support and in solidarity with this action here this afternoon by the arms of the trade union movement to say to the government that we thought that the partnership was bad when it comes to disrespect for workers' rights, but it is apparent that there is a competition to see who could be worse.
And at a joint media conference following the meeting Wednesday evening, President of TUTA, Lindsley Dudai, said it seemed the right to picket was under threat.
Because this issue is an issue bigger than one that TUTA is fighting. It's an issue for the entire labor movement, because our right to picket is under threat.
Appearing on Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago today, Mr. Dudai was asked why action being considered against teachers at the St. Madeleine Secondary School, since this was not the first time they had protested the removal of the school's principal. Earlier this week, the Minister of Education said action would be taken because the teachers acted illegally when they carried out a protest outside the school's compound.
The attention of the national community because of the ugly incident that played out on that particular day. But we did engage in a peaceful protest in February of 2015, and there were no consequences to that picket action by any of the picketers.
This is the C News Live Report at noon. Remember, you can keep up to date with all the latest news on our website at ctvtt.com, or you can check out our Facebook and Twitter pages at C News Live. The latest unemployment rate in this country is said to be 4.4%. This represents about 28,500 people without jobs. The figures are from the Ministry of Planning, which quoted statistics from the Central Statistical Office for the quarter ending June 2016. For the same quarter in 2015, there were 20,500 unemployed people. It said the CSO does not capture labor force data from the firms. The labor force data are collected via a continuous survey of households. Every quarter, approximately 3,000 households are surveyed by the CSO, and the economic activity carried out by each member of each household is recorded. The ministry said it is important to note that persons may have lost jobs at firms but may still be involved in some form of own account economic activity, and such persons are counted as employed under the standards and guidelines of the International Labour Organization, which is the methodology used by the CSO. It went on to say persons who may have lost jobs but did not seek employment during the reference period of the survey cannot be classified as unemployed. Rather, they are economically inactive and do not form part of the labor force. According to ILO standards and guidelines, the labor force consists of persons who are employed and those that are unemployed. Counselling services will be provided for colleagues and family members of WPC Nayasha Joseph today. This is according to President of the Police Social and Welfare Association, Michael Seals. The body of the 22-year-old police officer was found in a bag in the Gulf of Paria on Wednesday afternoon. She was reported missing on Thursday last week.
They have chosen to come to meet me, and I'm made myself available to speak with them. I do not know what the details of that conversation, and I would be approaching it with based on welfare. That's as simple as I can say.
The association is also sending social workers to assist fellow officers of WPC Joseph who may need help coping with her brutal death.
Listen, and more importantly, if those things are compromising the type of service that the community will be afforded, I have immediately dispatched my social worker to Ms. Helen Solomon, who is the representative of Northeastern Division, and in particular the Mover Station. So at least we can try to have the social workers talk with the officers there to try to mitigate some of the experience that they will have.
An autopsy on the body of the mother of one will be conducted today to find out the cause of death. To some other news now, Henry Street vendors are upset over the treatment they say has been meted out to them at the hands of the Port of Spain Mayor Joel Martinez. They say recently they have been harassed by the police, who removed their stalls and arrested some of them for plying their trade on the streets. Steve Fletcher, president of the Vendors Association, said the group was deeply surprised by the move, especially since the previous mayor, Karen Valentine, had given them permission to sell pending negotiations on a proper place for their selling activity. CNews spoke with Mayor Joel Martinez on the matter. He said he was not informed of what the police were about to do and believes the problem could have been less dramatic with a softer approach.
I'm not happy with the position that the police have done with regard to the communication to me. I would have liked to have had some form of communication from my officers indicating that, listen, this was an exercise that they were planning and going to carry out. At that point in time, I would have preferred the dialogue approach and some form of consideration to the vendor to say, look, you know what, you can't vend here, you have a certain amount of days before we move you, or hours, or whatever. At least some form of notice.
Mr. Martinez said that while vending is illegal, there must be better communication so that vendors' goods are not destroyed. He said despite not having heard from Mr. Fletcher, he is ready to meet with him after the end of this month. Here now is a look at your weather for this afternoon with Ian Wallace.
It's the middle of March, which is usually the driest month of the year, but Tobago has been wetter than normal, and Trinidad will likely see a couple of showers coming over the hillsides. But only the patchy clouds will come through, breaking up the sunshine, but it will still feel warm, 33 degrees Celsius in Trinidad, 30 degrees Celsius in Tobago. For those heading offshore, the trade winds are picking up as high pressure comes into play, whipping up the seas again 2 to 2.5 meters through the Caribbean and the Atlantic, with easterly winds of 15 to 20 knots and northeasterly swells of 9 seconds. Tide is high at 6:30 p.m. That is the latest weather, and I am meteorologist Ian Wallace.
Squatters will have to pay a property tax when the 2009 law takes effect before the end of this year. The Bankers Association and the Institute of Banking and Finance of Trinidad, and held an education meeting this morning, and several questions were asked and answered. One of the concerns raised is if a person would have to pay property tax even if their name is not on the deed for the property. Gillian Wolfe O'Neill said yes, as long as they are the occupier.
So if you're an occupier, you could be held liable for the tax. All right? You don't have to be the person's name that's on the deed. It's very broad. Squatters, I think, they're worried.
She explained also that the 2009 Act states items such as light poles and underground pipelines can be taxed.
But once there's a structure, machinery, once there's pipeline on land, it's taxable.
And of course, we'll have more on this story in the 7 p.m. newscast. The Ministry of Planning and Development is considering banning the use of styrofoam. However, it said this ban is not a unilateral stance by the government, and the consultation process facilitates the exploration of partnerships with the public and private sector as well as academia. Minister Camille Robinson-Regis acknowledged bans on styrofoam products in some Caribbean islands and other countries around the world, but stresses the importance this government places on ensuring the considerations of all citizens' concerns in the decision-making. Further discussions are to be held before a decision is made on the route to continue the construction of the San Fernando to Point Fortin Highway. A statement from the Ministry of Works and Transport said a meeting with Minister Rohan Sinanan and the Highway Reroute movement led by Dr. Wayne Kublal Singh took place on Monday. It said Dr. Kublal Singh provided alternative routes to be examined and that consideration be given to the findings of the Environmental Impact Assessment Study as well as the feasibility and acquisition studies. Minister Sinanan agreed to further discussions on the HRM's proposal before a decision is made and asked executives of the National Infrastructure Development Company Limited, who were in attendance, to meet with them to review their studies and to conduct new hydrology studies of the area. And now it's time for me to turn you over to Nasira Mohammed, who has the latest in the world of sport.
That's correct, Mahalia. World Hockey League is coming to Trinidad and Tobago. The International Hockey Federation member, Maureen Craig Russo, brought greetings from the organization at the launch of the World Hockey League Round 2 tournament set for Tacarigua later this month. Mrs. Craig Russo had praises for the facilities and believes that it will be used to churn out future hockey stars.
And many times when we host these tournaments, it's not only that the country is able to see their team participating, but a legacy is left. A legacy of infrastructure that supports development, which is very important going forward. So people would have seen the busyness of the facility with the lights being upgraded. We are certainly going to get a new turf, and all those things are sound development tools going forward.
Was this so difficult? Those were the words of Sports Minister Darrell Smith as he addressed a gathering at almost 95% completed Brian Lara Stadium in Tarouba yesterday. The minister lamented the delays and bureaucracy which left the facility to rot for 10 years, denying deserving youngsters to hone their skills. I was part of a tour of the new facility and was quite impressed by what I saw. 10 years and it looks like it's going to be finally finished. The Brian Lara Stadium with a Brian Lara Cricket Academy is about to be launched in a proposed date of May 2017 by the Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs, Darrell Smith.
We'll be doing a major launch. We're working with him. At the end of the day, it's to honor him. He's a world icon. He's a treasure that we have here in Trinidad. And in May, we'll be having a fantastic launch that the whole world will be stopping to watch Trinidad and Tobago.
The Keith Rowley-led government allocated $90 million last year for the completion of the stadium, and Minister Smith announced that costs were currently at $86 million. He lamented that 10 years was wasted because of unnecessary political games, when the youths of TNT and the Caribbean could have been flourishing at the world-class venue.
It's about the human resource, it's about the young people, it's about our greatest resource that we have, which are the athletes and the young people of Trinidad and Tobago. And if you work out 10 years as primary school and secondary school, we have lost a generation of young people. You know, when we were out there, we were hearing the nostalgia of the recording of Brian Lara when he broke the record. How many more memories, how many more records we could have broken here with that lost generation of 10 years? How many young people could have passed there, male and female, could have come in records for the West Indies, for other countries, for Trinidad and Tobago.
UDCOT, who is in charge of the construction, will hand over the facility to the care of the Sport Company of Trinidad and Tobago, who will handle the maintenance and day-to-day operations of the facility. TTCB Executive Member and former Minister of Sport Manohar Ramsaran is confident of receiving swift certification from the International Cricket Council.
As you see here today, we are not far from that with our own limited experience. This is not too far at all from being certified, if I may say so.
In its original format, it was meant to be an academy-like facility for training and development. Well, the Trinidad and Tobago Soca Warriors continue their preparations for their two crucial World Cup qualifiers with Panama and Mexico next week. The team switched base to the Hazley Crawford Stadium recently, where most of the work is being done now to help the players feel comfortable at the match venue and the surface. One of the men who is expected to play a big role on the team, both on and off the pitch, is veteran utility player Carlos Edwards, who is also happy with the preparations so far.
Me personally feel okay, feel good, feel fresh, fit. Obviously coming off the little injury against Haiti in the qualifiers. Looking back at the guys who Dennis has brought in, look very productive, spritey, fresh, and I think the guys are there full of confidence. The training has been great. Nothing too much, putting us through our paces. Trying to get the guys to a certain level of fitness, and you can see the guys in there really taking heed of what has been taught to them.
The former Wrexham player who played alongside coach Dennis Lawrence for years, both at home and abroad, believes things are pointed in the right direction and believes TNT can get a good result against Panama, just like in 2005.
And obviously take the bull by the horn. As players, we need to take responsibility. We know what is at hand. We know what it takes to obviously to try and win a game. And all I can say is obviously the guys, and they know, and they're going to go out there with put the best foot forward when they cross that white line, and just going to give it all. But saying that, obviously you said before, obviously the experience that I have and playing in the past and coming through it the hard way, I think as Trinidadians, I think we like to do it the hard way. But I don't see it's an impossible task. It's going to be a tough one. When the guys in there are obviously taken in the right direction, I think we could get a result, and a positive result.
And that's it for sport for today.
Returning to news at home, the Minister of National Security says there is a difference between a missing person and a person being kidnapped. Responding to questions in Parliament on Wednesday, Minister Edmund Dillon said from December 2015 to January 2017, some 930 people have been reported missing. As of January 31st, 2017, 874 of them have been found.
For the same period, there were 3 reports of persons being kidnapped, none of whom have been accounted for to date. The reports of persons who are not accounted for are still under investigation with the aim of finding these persons. Part B.
He said the anti-kidnapping unit provides support to the families of people reported missing and kidnapped.
Updates on the progress being made to the investigation, traumatic incident reduction procedures, grief counselling in the form of individual or group counselling, Madam Speaker.
The Minister of Works and Transport, Rohan Sinanan, says he would not be surprised if contract workers at the National Infrastructure Development Company Limited are sent home. He was asked in the lower house on Wednesday if the company would be sending home about 100 workers in the coming weeks as part of its restructuring plan.
In January 2017, NIDCO engaged Personnel Management Service Limited to conduct a manpower audit and to propose recommendations on the right sizing of the company. Their work is ongoing and a final report is yet to be submitted. No decision have been taken, and therefore the report that over 100 contract workers is to be sent home is inaccurate.
The minister noted contracts for some of the workers have expired, but workers continue to do their job until the manpower audit is completed. But he raised concerns about what an employee who has been making about $200,000 a month at NIDCO. And that's how we end the C News Report at noon. I'm Mahalia Joseph.
And I'm Nasira Mohammed.
Remember, for up-to-date and breaking news throughout the day, you can visit the C News website at ctvtt.com. Have a good afternoon.